Your grandfather probably had one job. Your father maybe had two. You have a full-time job, a side hustle, a freelance gig, and an Etsy store you check at 11 p.m. while pretending to watch TV. And yet, somehow, the gap between you and actual wealth keeps getting wider. That is not bad luck. That is not laziness. That is a structural problem that most side hustle advice completely ignores. Because here is what nobody in the six figures from your laptop space will tell you. Making extra money is not the same as building wealth. They are two completely different games. And right now, most people are playing game one while thinking they are winning game two. This video is about the difference and what it actually takes to cross from one side to the other. Let's talk about what is happening right now. As of 2024, roughly 45% of Americans have some kind of side income. In the UK, that number is closer to 39%. In India, the gig economy alone employs over 15 million people, and that number is growing. Side hustles are not a trend anymore. They are an economic survival mechanism. People are doing it because salaries stopped keeping up with rent, with food, with the cost of just existing. And so the natural response was, find another stream. Smart, logical, necessary. But here is where it gets interesting. Of all those millions of people earning extra income, only a tiny fraction, we are talking somewhere between 3 and 5%, ever convert that hustle into anything that outlasts them. The rest? They spend it, or they save it in an account that loses value to inflation, or they reinvest it back into the hustle itself, forever trading time for money, just at a slightly higher rate. That is not generational wealth. That is a hamster wheel with better branding. So what separates the 3% from everyone else? That is the question this video actually answers. Part 1, the income trap. Let's start with the uncomfortable math. Say you are making an extra $2,000 a month from your side hustle. That is $24,000 a year. Sounds good. Feels good. Now subtract taxes. Depending on where you live, you are losing anywhere from 25 to 40% of that to self-employment tax. Let us call it 30% to be conservative. You are now at roughly $16,800. Now subtract the cost of running the hustle. Software, materials, ads, equipment. Your time valued at something reasonable. Let us say $3,000 a year. $13,800. Now here's where most people stop doing math, because the next part is uncomfortable. If you are spending that $13,000 on lifestyle upgrades, on experiences, on things that feel like rewards for working harder, you have built nothing. You have just raised your floor, and you will spend the rest of your life defending it. This is called lifestyle inflation. Economists have documented it obsessively. The moment income rises, spending rises to match it. It is almost automatic. And it is the single biggest reason side hustle income never becomes generational wealth. The money comes in, the money goes out, the cycle repeats. And the cruel irony is that the hustle often grows. You make more, you spend more, you are busier, more stressed, and no closer to freedom than when you started. Part 2, the asset shift. Now here's the mechanism that actually matters. And it is simpler than most finance content wants you to believe. The difference between income and wealth is whether your money is working or resting. Money in your checking account is resting. Money in a business that runs without you is working. Money in assets that appreciate over time, real estate, index funds, equity in something, is working while you sleep. Generational wealth is not built on income. It is built on assets. And the shift from one to the other requires a decision that feels almost counterintuitive. You have to stop spending the side hustle money, not forever, but long enough to deploy it. Here is a real example of what this looks like mathematically. Take that $13,800 in annual net side hustle income. Instead of spending it, you invest it into a broad market index fund earning an average of 8% annually. Nothing exotic, nothing clever. In 10 years, you have not just saved $138,000. You have accumulated approximately $220,000 because of compounding. In 20 years, that number climbs past $500,000. In 30 years, which is roughly the timeline of one generation, you are sitting above $1.2 million. from one side hustle, earning $2,000 a month, that most people are currently spending. That is not a fantasy. That is just arithmetic that most people never do because it requires patience in a world designed to sell you impatience. Part 3, the structural move. But investing alone is still only half the picture, because here's what the finance YouTube space often leaves out. The tax system is not neutral. It treats wage income very differently from asset income. And if you do not understand that distinction, you will spend your whole life paying the highest possible rate. When you earn money from a side hustle, it is typically taxed as ordinary income. That can be 25, 32, even 37% in the US, depending on your bracket. When you earn money from a long-term capital gain, meaning an asset you held for over a year, the maximum federal rate in the US is 20%. And for most middle-income earners, it is 15 or even 0. That gap is not an accident. It is a design. The tax code was written by people who own assets to favor people who own assets. So the structural move is this. Convert your hustle income into an entity, document your expenses properly, reduce your taxable income, and use what remains to buy assets that are taxed at the lower rate when they eventually pay out. This is what wealthy families do, not in some shadowy, illegal way. In a very boring, very legal, very documented way that most regular earners never bother to learn because nobody taught it to them. Register an LLC or equivalent structure in your country. Speak to an accountant who works with small business owners, not just salaried employees. Understand what is deductible. Understand what a solo 401k or SEP-IRA can do for your taxable income. These are not loopholes. They are the actual rules of the game. Part 4. The generational piece. Now let us zoom out, because wealth is not just about you. Generational wealth means building something that does not have to start over when you are gone. Most families do not lose wealth because of one bad decision. They lose it because of 3 things. No estate plan, no financial education passed down, and assets that dissolve instead of transfer. The average inheritance in the United States lasts fewer than 3 generations. The first generation earns it. The second generation spends it carelessly. The third generation never sees it. There's actually a phrase for this in family office circles. Shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. The same pattern shows up in Chinese, Scottish, and Irish proverbs. Different cultures, same outcome. The mechanism of failure is almost always the same. The wealth is created without a structure to hold it. No trust, no clear ownership, no education for the children about what they're inheriting or why it exists. So the last piece of turning a side hustle into generational wealth is documentation and design. A will, potentially a trust, clear ownership of assets in an entity that survives you, and most importantly, conversations, the ones most families find uncomfortable, about money, about values, about what you are actually building and for whom. The unresolved question. Here is where we land. The blueprint exists. It is not complicated. It is not secret. Make extra income. Convert to assets. Understand the tax structure. Build an entity. Write a plan. And yet, the number of people who actually do it remains stubbornly small, which raises a question worth sitting with. Is the barrier really information? Or is it something else? The culture around money. The scarcity mindset passed down from parents who never had enough. The discomfort of delaying gratification in a world that profits enormously from your impatience? Because every algorithm, every ad, you deserve this message is pointed directly at the moment between earning money and deploying it wisely. That moment is where the war is fought. And most people lose it not because they lack knowledge, but because they never realized there was a war at all. Now you do. What you do with that is entirely up to you.